Universal Orlando has officially given a spotlight to Super Nintendo World as part of Epic Universe, opening up next year. And the animated fly-through had us curious. Just how close is this part going to be to the one in Japan? So we decided to comb through and see what notable details and differences we can find. Of course, it's worth mentioning that this is an animated trailer, essentially showing the concept off. There is a chance that the final park may look a bit different, but we're working under the assumption that it will more closely resemble this fly-through. With that out of the way, let's get comparing. Right off the bat, the entrance to the park isn't just a pipe to walk through. This version has escalators, suggesting that the park, or at least the main entrance to the park, is higher up than it is in Hollywood and Japan. Once inside, at a glance, the sight from the entrance just outside Peach's Castle is very similar to the park in Japan. But there are some small differences. Mario Motors is far more prominent on the left, while in Japan, it's tucked away, hidden by Mount Beanpole. This central area down here looks nearly identical, but there are no colored blocks on the left here behind the stairs. And there's also no apple trees up on the ledges, now just some bushes, only one of which actually has apples. Instead, one of these trees up on Mount Beanpole is now an apple tree. Near the Koopa up here, now there's one large blue block, while the red one is missing. And notably, there's no Goomba Tower on Mount Beanpole here in Orlando anymore. Maybe there'll be one elsewhere in the park. But different concept art for the park depicts them there, so maybe they will be. Bowser Castle is one of the biggest changes though, but it may not be immediately obvious why. Its exact position is a little bit different, even though it's still at an angle facing Peach's Castle from the opposite corner. But if we look at Google Maps or an aerial view, the actual building is quite different. In Japan, the building for Bowser's Castle and the Mario Kart ride take up most of this space behind Mount Beanpole. But in Orlando, it doesn't go by the mountain at all. In fact, if we look at the overall shapes of Super Nintendo World and the Donkey Kong expansion, they're a bit different. We can add in the Hollywood part for comparison, but that only really shows just how much bigger the other parks are. But the main comparison here is between the Japanese and Orlando parks. The shape of the borders around the park by Peach's Castle are different. This section to the left of the castle also seems notably bigger in Orlando. Maybe there's a larger interior? Moving back into the park itself though, as per the animated fly-through, the sitting area with mushrooms by Bowser Castle seems to be gone. Instead, now there's some blocks and a piranha plant. So the seating areas are probably just moved around a bit then. We do see one large mushroom for a possible seating area behind the large piranha plant minigame, and even more of them closer to Peach's Castle. Speaking of that piranha plant minigame, it's in a changed position. While it's still on the cliff near the Toadstool Cafe, its orientation has changed. In Japan, it faces Bowser's Castle, but now it appears to face out towards the rest of the park. Sticking around here, there's also a new blue wall behind Toadstool Cafe that wasn't there in Japan. Previously, there was a red wall, and a piranha plant up on the cliffside. The mushroom sliding back and forth is still here, but now it's a 1-up mushroom rather than a super mushroom. The Yoshi Adventure ride seems to be exactly the same as it is in Japan from what we can see. We can even see the conch door is still there in both versions too. And the entrance to the Donkey Kong Country area is exactly the same. And over in the DK area, there's what seems to be an actual waterfall in the Orlando park. Whereas in the Japanese park, rather than an actual waterfall, this is just mist. And with that, that's every notable detail and difference we could find in Super Nintendo World in Orlando, Florida. We're pretty excited for this part to open up next year. And who knows, there may end up being even more differences between it and the Japanese park. But what do you guys think? Spot a difference we didn't mention here? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for plenty more on Super Nintendo World, and other things gaming as well, of course. Until next time, farewell.